Okay, well, let's come and dig into some 10 questions because I like having the 10 questions that I when people enjoy these. Um, so your favorite Tom Petty album, if you absolutely had to pick only one, I know it's a horrible question.
Yeah. Well, and I think I mentioned this earlier, probably Damn the Torpedoes
Yeah.
because of the nostalgia. I mean, yes, there are other albums that I think musically are better, but I'll have to go with that one.
Well, but I think it's one of those two that it's kind of like Night at the Opera for Queen. I'm a huge Queen fan,
Me
and
too.
most Queen fans don't really listen to Night at the Opera anymore, or you don't listen to Bohemian Rhapsody anymore. But when you go back and you do listen to the whole album, you think, yeah, there's a reason why that was big. It's because it's amazing front to back, you know.
Yes, yes, right. And to extract a song or two off of that on the radio is not the same. I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay, so Mudcrutch or the Traveling Wilburys? Because we have had, we talked about Mudcrutch a little bit. You've seen Mudcrutch, and we've got Traveling Wilburys references on the website. So which band would you go to?
I'd love to see them both. I like both, especially the first Wilburys album. But I'd have to go with Mudcrutch. There are two albums in the EP which I have, and I have the albums. I've seen them live. I think musically they were amazing, and also because they were Heartbreakers 1.0
Yeah.
and maybe 2.0 because of the
Yeah.
reincarnation of them. But yeah, I mean it's 3/5 of the Heartbreakers, right? So I have to go with them.
One Tom Lennon and Randall. So which is
Yes.
I find that interesting too to talk. Obviously, Tom's passed now, but with Randall, I don't know if he just sort of kept playing recreationally or he was in bands during the intervening years. Because to all of a sudden, now being a rock band with Tom Petty and Mike Campbell and Ben Montench, who've been touring the world and have played with Dylan and played with Cash, you wonder whether that would have been intimidating or whether it was just, oh, it's just my friends again. We're just going to play the songs we used to play and it's going to be great.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one, and
Yeah.
I wonder the same thing. I mean, I think I did read that he was a session musician with various bands and stuff. And Randall, if you're listening to this, please let us know.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so if you could join the Heartbreakers on stage for one song, what would it be? And would you play and or sing? And you mentioned that you do have a guitar and you do like to strum and learn songs. So what song are we going with?
Well, I can also not sing, but I something big. The song something big because anytime that song comes in, and I'm often driving in the car, I am singing that song and even find myself like acting it out as the lines are being delivered.
Yeah,
And I don't play keyboards, but I'd probably play keyboards. I love Ben Mont's keyboards in that song.
it's a wicked. It's almost got that clav. It's almost got that Stevie Wonder clav kind of thing that he's playing, or the style he's playing. Of course, Ben Mont can play anything, but that it's interesting you picked that one because I'd actually sort of, as we were talking before about Tom writing ambiguous lyrics, but also very sort of narrative specific lyrics. That's one of the songs where he does both in the same song.
Yes, he does both.
It's insane.
I love it for that reason. Yes.
Yeah, I was talking to I do a thing called the Petty Eight. Is one of the episodes that I do of the podcast where I bring in someone who's not a petty head, but is a musician who I know is a safe pair of hands who I can give 8 songs to and say, listen to these songs, tell me what you think. And Something Big is always one that everyone likes. No one's ever sort of said, I could take or leave that one. Everyone loves that song because like, and the question they go is, well, what do you think it means? Like, what do you take? What happens at the end? What do you think the end of that story is? I'm like, well, I think that's the genius of it, is it just leaves it open. So,
Yes. Well, I mean, similar to the Dylan lyrics, right? Like,
yeah,
what does that mean? But yeah, that's one of the deep cuts, right? I mean,
yeah,
that would be my greatest hits. But most people don't know that song.
absolutely. Okay, so you've seen quite a few gigs, and so I'll ask you this question, but then I'll ask you a follow up too on this one. Who would be your dream opening act at a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers concert? And
Um,
maybe someone you didn't see open.
yeah. Well, actually, they've had so many bands as opening acts. It's like, and I've seen so many, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Crosby, Stills, Nash. I saw Steve Winwood, Lenny Kravitz, The Replacements, the Del Fuegos, Georgia Satellites, till Tuesday, Nick Lowe, and so on. And I don't know, I'm
right.
forgetting some. But in terms of the dream opening act for me, I'd say Bo Diddley. Uh, I,
Oh.
I would, I mean, I know they performed on stage together, but I'd like to have a whole set of Bo in advance of Tom.
That'd be wicked cool. And no one's answered that either. I think that's one of the better answers because what
Oh,
I always
thank
like thinking about too is when people pick an opener, then if it's someone like Bo Diddley, what would he come and play? Because he's going to join the Heartbreakers on stage and he's going to come out and play something. And maybe it's going to just play Hey Bo Diddley, which
yeah.
I mean, you would want to see that. But then would Tom go and join? Would Tom or Mike go and play a bit of guitar with Bo in his set?
I saw the Dylan and Petty tour as well,
Yeah,
and I liked how they did opposite sets and then intertwined. It's the same thing with
yeah,
Bo and Tom. I think that the Heartbreakers would have loved to have had Bo as an opening act or
yeah.
part of the band.
It would have fit really well too, right? Because obviously, if Bo Diddley's set ends and then the first song the Heartbreakers do is American Girl, well, there's a natural progression there because it's got the Bo Diddley beat in it, sort of, so it would be,
Yeah,
genetically it works, I think.
there you go. There you go.
So the follow-up question to that though was of the support or the opening acts that you did see, was the one that sort of converted you to being a fan of that band and sort of blew you away? Like who was the best band that you saw open for Tom?
Hmm. That's a very good question. I mean, obviously, CSN and Steve Winwood and Joe Walsh was another. I mean, I knew
Yeah,
their music. I mean, well, Nick Lowe, I knew like a song or two,
right.
and he was actually on the Long After Dark tour opener when I saw him, and I guess I discovered Nick Lowe or a deeper understanding of Nick Lowe there, and then I dug deeper into the Replacements after seeing them, and I knew some songs, and I dug deeper into them, but yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Nick Lowe, nice. Okay. Okay, so who's your favorite band member other than Tom?
Well, I have. I have fingers and toes, and I have no favorites. I love them all, and I can't sacrifice any of them. I can't identify which is my favorite finger or toe. Uh, but you're not asking about fingers or toes, right? Okay. So Mike Campbell has with the Dirty Knobs has 3 albums out. I own them. I love them all. I've seen them twice. I will see them more. And I have this, show next month with Mike Campbell as part of the band
Yeah.
tribute. So I'd have to say him, but I love Benmont. I love his first album. I look forward to the new one. I look forward to seeing him in New York in February for the residency. So maybe two. There you
He's going to
go.
go with Ben Montana, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've talked about this with other people too, that Benmont and Mike really are they're as much a part of the Heartbreakers sound or Tom Petty sound as Tom Petty is, right? I mean, Steve and Stan sound differently. Sound different. And they can do different things with the drums. Howie's a different bass player to Ron Blair. Scott Thurston brings in so much different value to the sound, but really at its core, when you take, especially Mike, right? Because Mike was obviously involved in all the solo albums as well. There's something about that relationship between two or three musicians that is fundamental to everything about the sound. It's like Lennon and McCartney. You simply couldn't have the Beatles if you took either Lennon and McCartney out. It just doesn't work, right?
Yeah. It's the glue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's as much as anything else, it's not just their playing, it's the creative conflict. Right? I think it's that holding each other accountable to their own standards and to the music is why that sort of triumvirate works, which I think is fantastic. Okay, so if you could go to see any Tom Petty concert from history that you weren't at, which one would you pick? So it could be either a very specific gig or an era or a tour.
I'd have to say any, if not all, of the Fillmore shows in '97 that
Yeah,
became part of this recently released box set, just because of all the covers. When Mark Felsod says, that they're the greatest cover band of all time, that doesn't mean to diminish their original music, which is great,
yeah.
but their covers, transform songs. I mean, I have to admit that I'm not a big fan of covers because a lot of songs are so good in their original that they shouldn't be covered.
Yeah.
But the Heartbreakers can in my mind transform a cover.
Okay, well, I'm going to do the next two questions in reverse order then, because that's a really nice segue into if you could pick any artist to cover any Tom Petty song, and maybe someone who would, because there's lots of covers have been coming out lately. Who would it be, and what song would you have them cover?
Okay, if we're talking about dead, resurrected from the grave, Elvis Presley doing I Forgive It All. I was struggling with the name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like the later year Elvis, where you would drag that out. That I forgive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if we're talking about living musicians, I'd like to hear Mick Jagger do "Hometown Blues." One of the country songs, which I love.
Yeah.
The Rolling Stones do the country songs.
Well, and it's got that bluesy or that bluesy, stonesy swagger to it
Yeah,
anyway, right?
yes, that's what I'm thinking. And to
Yeah,
hear him sing "Hometown Blues," I could hear his voice. Yeah, yeah.
that'd be fantastic too. And I
So
think
Mick, if you're listening, there you go.
yeah,
That's an idea.
of course he's listening. He always listens. He's a
Of
catalog
course.
listener. So.
Yes.
Okay, so Walls Circus or Walls number three, because I'm just starting on the 11th season of the Tom Petty Project and we're covering songs and music from She's the One. So which is your favorite version of that track?
Well, three is a good pop song, but the circus has an atmospheric sound because of the added in instrumentation, and
Yeah.
I prefer that one.
It's I'd written down like I'd written my notes for the first episode, and I've written down psychedelic. And I keep
Yeah,
thinking, I don't know if I love that word in there because I don't think it's not psychedelic in the same way that, the sort of the psychedelic rock, but there is something that's the only word I can find to describe the sound of it.
Iron Butterflies, Inagata Devita. Okay, that would be psychedelic. No, it's trippy, but that's not the right word. But
Yeah.
I think of the right adjectives. I'm struggling on the spot.
Yeah. But I think it comes from because they've slowed the tempo down. I think that's really the key element of that. It's not just the additional instrumentation, but when you slow it down and it gets a bit more slouchy and a bit more groovy, it just changes the whole feel of the song completely, right? Even though the lyrics are bar one line exactly the same, it just becomes this totally different beast, which is it shows you how brilliant these guys were because they could just approach the same song from all these different angles and have
Yeah,
it come out sounding totally different.
yeah. Well, I think, I mean, everyone says, "Oh, you're a Tom Petty fan," and it's like, I am, but I'm also Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers fan, and
Yeah.
so I find myself now talking to people. It's like, there's someone say, oh, "Who's your favorite?" I'm Heartbreakers, and they're like, "What?" Tom Petty and the Oh, I love Tom Petty, and it's like, okay, but there's the Heartbreakers, so it's the instrumentation. I think that the band. Is so good,
Yeah.
So anyway, in that song about the walls, the circus, that just showcases a bit more of their playing. Instrumentally, I love the Heartbreakers.
Yeah. And I'm one of those, I go through anytime I see on Wikipedia or any site that you can offer corrections, anytime it says Tom Petty and his backing band, the Heartbreakers,
Uh-huh.
I
Oh,
correct it. I correct it immediately. No,
yeah,
no, no, no.
good.
This is
Good
not a
on you.
backing band.
I agree. Yes.
Okay, so what song do you most frequently recommend to people who don't know Tom's music? Is the one that you generally tend to go to?
Huh. This is a tough question because as I've said in this interview here, that Tom said, just because it's the greatest hit doesn't mean it's one of our best songs.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason. Well, when I go to visit my mother, I'll put it this way: my 80-plus-year-old mother, right? And she knows nothing about Tom Petty other than she knows that I like Tom Petty. And so I'm visiting, and she'll say, "Alexa, play some Tom Petty music." And what's the first song that Alexa plays? Free Falling, right?
Yeah.
And then it'll play, I don't know, I can't remember, I Don't Back Down or Mary Jane's Last Dance or whatever, and Running Down a Dream or whatever.
Yeah.
And those were all great songs. I love them. But there are many other deeper cuts. I mean, I know Something Big, right? Or whatever. I mean, I could reel off a whole list. So
Yeah.
the list is too long. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, I mean, yes, if someone said, I don't know anything about Tom Petty, I'd say, Alexa, play Tom Petty music for this person.
Yeah.
But if someone came to me and says, I know those songs, and can you recommend other songs? Then I would come up with a list, for
I mean, it's a sensational greatest hits. That's the other thing we should say too, right? We talk, as fans, we do tend to focus more on the deep cuts because we've heard, and we don't want people thinking that our favorite artist is only the greatest hits. But it's like Queen's greatest hits. When you listen to it, Tom Petty's greatest hits, you're like, yeah, every single song on that album is bar one, because I think Something in the Air, it's a great cover, but it's still a cover. It's not a Tom Petty song, and
Yeah,
I'm not always a fan of, you know, songs that weren't released being on greatest hits. But then, of course, Mary Jane's Last Dance deserves
yeah.
its place on the greatest hits.
They had to
But
add those in. Yeah,
but
it's just like
yeah,
Mary Jane's Last Dance. They had to add in as like a I don't know, to help the album, but it turned out to be one of their big hits. That's
yes,
it was not a greatest hit at the time.
no,
No, that's right.
one of those rare examples where a song that was recorded for the greatest hits actually is a greatest hits song.
That's a crazy story. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, so last question here. Describe Tom Petty in 3 words.
Simply the best. Or Tom Petty Trail.
There we
.com.
go.
That's the segue.